As the NFL draft draws closer and closer, we're honored to get this guy in here, Brian Baldinger. Baldy joins PHNX Cardinals as he's done all draft season long, giving us the insight, only the best insight that he can, Johnny. Baldy, great to have you on. What are you doing? What are the finishing touches you're putting on your draft evaluation at this point?
Well, I'm listening to some of the rumors, like we all are. So, and then I'm looking at some people that have just put out their top 50, their top 150 guys I respect in the business, and just kind of comparing notes where they're at, where I'm at, concentrating on the 150. But I've got smattering of guys in the 6th, 7th free agent type things in case they kind of get thrown at me. I know who they are. So I'm still kind of grinding like a lot of teams are, but I'm also kind of playing all the what if games along the way because that's what all these general managers are doing right now. And so I'm just kind of trying to play along with them and seeing how they might be thinking about starting Thursday night.
Baldy, as we attempt to make sense of the top 5, and will the Cardinals take Marvin? Will they trade down? There's a new report that potentially the Vikings could balk at the Cardinals' asking price because, quote, they feel comfortable taking Bo Nix later in the first round. The speculation as it relates to Nix, and I know how you feel about Michael Penix, but let's focus on Nix for a second. Like when you watch the tape, a lot of the criticism is 6 years in college, capped athleticism, a lot of checkdowns, right? Like, do you think he's a first-round caliber quarterback?
He's right on the border. I mean, he's right there. He improved a lot from the time at Auburn to his time at Oregon. He improved a great deal. He got a real good receiver in Troy Franklin that he threw the ball down to. They were highly competitive. The Pac-12 got a lot better the last 2 years because the quarterbacks got a lot better. Caleb, Michael, Bo. I mean, the quarterback kind of drove that conference for the first time in a long time. And they were all there, for about the same amount of time. So I think, yes, there's a lot of bubble screens, but there's a lot of bubble screens in a lot of offenses. You have to kind of comb through it to look for the type of throws. But I think he's right on the board. I mean, Drew Brees was the 32nd pick, in the draft back in 2001. He was the first pick of the second round. I think Bo Nix I'm not comparing him to Drew Brees, but I feel like he's right there. Like somebody could trade back into the first round and take him. He could be taken because I don't think if you just look at the teams after Seattle, you can't really make a case for any team from 17 to 32 to take Bo Nix. But somebody that passes, somebody that looks down the road, somebody who wants to try to come back in the first round, I think that's where his sweet spot could be.
Well, you've been in some war rooms before. Am I wrong in saying that?
No, I've been around some of them.
So take us inside that room because Monty Ossenfort, the reports are that he would wait until the Cardinals are on the clock. And there was, incredible footage last year from the Cardinals in the war room and Monty navigating the phones and moving down and then moving back up. But can you kind of tell us, the challenges he faces, especially with the competition to get up potentially to 4 and making a deal while on the clock?
Well, first of all, you got to make sure that your phone service is paid. I mean, they literally have a separate line to every team. So, you've got 31 phone lines, AFC, NFC, division by division. I mean, all of that is very organized. So I don't know if the Las Vegas Raiders want to trade up to get to number 4, or the New York Giants want to trade up from 6 to get to 4. I mean, Monty's got to be able to field that call. And you really don't know. I don't think anybody really knows exactly what Washington's doing yet. I think we can surmise, but I just think it's going to be hard to do anything before the draft. And it's because none of those teams that are interested in a quarterback or another position know who's going to be available yet. And so if we knew the first, like, for example, 2016, we knew Carson was going to be followed by Jared Goff, Carson. We kind of knew that was 1-2. There was very little. I mean, if you wanted to get to 3, you knew who the first 2 guys off the board were. Bonnie doesn't know that right now. I don't think his intel knows. And so maybe there's still, Bidwell to Cliff Kingsbury thing going on. I kind of doubt it, but, maybe, they have a little bit of an idea. But I think for the most part, you got to be very fluid when it comes time to Thursday night.
Baldy, I've seen people call this wide receiver class historically good. And then I look at a lot of the mock drafts. And I would argue this offensive line class has a chance to eclipse it. Like in your projection right now, when looking at the top 32 picks, like, would it be crazy if damn near a third of them are offensive linemen in conjunction with tackles, interior players? I mean, we did a mock on our show on Sunday night. We had 8 tackles go within, I think, the first 25 picks, which is unheard of.
Yeah, I mean, you can go right down the line, and they're going to come off the board pretty fast. I do believe there's going to be 7 or 8 offensive tackles, depending on how you want to rate Graham Barton right now. Is he a tackle? Is he a center? I think he's a first-round pick at center right now for a couple of teams. But I do believe we're going to see 8 or 9 offensive linemen taken in the first 32. And that might be historic if we see something like that. But it's just that kind of talent. Falatano, Fuaga, all, like, you can go through Amarius Mims, Tyler Guyton. I mean, we all know all the names. It's just, but I've talked to some people about some of these guys, and, some might be on the entitled side. Some, need coaching. Some might be a little young. I mean, you hear like the tractions, but that's normal. That's just normal nitpicking about certain, players and sort of, how they're constituted. But that's not uncommon to hear that kind of talk about certain people.
I know the Cardinals probably don't want to go just based on need, but when you look at this offensive line group, which prospects fit what they're looking for? I mean, they've got 2 tackles. They basically bookended their offensive line, Jonah Williams and Paris Johnson Jr., who, based on that, has the ability to the versatility or could just primarily play inside for a couple years when you're looking at the top prospects in this offensive line class.
Well, a guy like Troy Falatano at Washington, I mean, he's been the left tackle up there, and he's excellent. But I think he's going to be a Pro Bowl offensive guard. He's just got tremendous power, feet. He moves really, really well. He bends exceptionally well. I mean, I just think inside, the way Zach Martin went inside, the way Quentin Nelson went inside from playing tackle at Notre Dame, like, I just think that's going to be the place. And it's just a question of, how high of a pick do you want to spend on an offensive guard? I mean, guards, both Zach Martin and Quentin Nelson have both gotten paid. The Eagles paid Landon Dickerson. The great guards in this league get paid because you got to keep the front of your pocket flat for your quarterback to be able to step up into him. And the defensive tackles we've seen over the last 3 years, they've all gotten paid. Simmons and Quinnen Williams and Deron Payne and, Derek Brown. I mean, all these guys are getting paid now. You better have some guys that can, stop 330 pounds of, massive strength coming at your quarterback. You got to kind of match it up front.
Baldy, I think we all have our favorites, especially, on day 2 when you hope that certain players fall to your team. I'm high on Chris Jenkins out of Michigan. There's a bunch of players for Harbaugh's national champions that I think would be great in the Cardinal red and white. Are there any players that you feel like, okay, yeah, they may not go in the first round, but they're going to be really good football players, maybe get, a second contract eventually for their team? Guys like, Chris Jenkins. I'm a big Xavier Legette fan. Mm-hmm. Any guys like that on your radar come day 2?
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch. Muhammad Kamara from Colorado State. Looks like he's going to be a good edge rusher to me. He's got 29 sacks in 3 years at Colorado State, but it's more than the sacks. It's just the way that he plays the game. He plays it really well. If you look at Edgerrin Cooper, I don't know if there's going to be an off-the-ball inside linebacker taken the first round, but he's a first-round pick to me, and he can be a dominant interior player. I mean, he smacks you. He's exceptionally quick, not to mention fast, where he spied quarterbacks at the, whether it's Jaden Daniels or Milroe from Alabama. I mean, he has a really unique skill set. I think both those guys probably are day 2, but probably not hanging around very long in that second round.
What do you think is the best case scenario for Austin Fort and the Cardinals after round 1 that they can come away with?
Well, if they just stay, look, there's going to be, you have to field the offers if anybody's coming up for presumably the 4th quarterback. You have to listen, but they do have 6 of the top 90 picks. So you've got 3 third-round picks. You really don't need all 11 picks. What you need 4 or 5 starters is what you need. And so, like, I can see Monty going, okay, if we stay at 4, we don't like what we're getting. We stay at 4, we take, let's just say, you take Marvin Harrison. But I can see, when you're sitting down there at the bottom of the first round, going, let's go up and get Fatano. Let's go up and get Latu. Let's use one of those third-round picks. Let's jump. Like, I can see him being very aggressive and saying, let's go get 2 day one starters, maybe an offensive lineman, defensive lineman, wide receiver, 2 wide receivers. Let's be aggressive, and let's go get some marquee players that we can really build this, offense, defense that we could build around. And those guys are typically taking the top 15. So I can see him being aggressive if he stays at 4, takes the receiver, and then aggressive to get back up there and go get another elite day one starter.
What's your gut tell you the Cardinals are going to do on the clock at pick 4? Because they mentioned they're not going to trade the pick, if at all, unless they're on the clock right now, fielding offers. We're trying to get a pulse of it. It seemingly, Baldy, changes every day. Marvin or a trade down? Give us your prediction.
I think that they'll take Marvin. I think, the comparisons to Larry Fitzgerald are real. If he's anywhere near what Larry Fitzgerald was and still is, in that community and on that team, then go get Marvin Harrison. Like, don't even wait around and say, okay, well, we can get Rome if we drop down, 3 slots and still get Rome. Like, just get Marvin. The fan base will go. They're going to be thrilled. The quarterback's going to be thrilled. I think you've already gotten off to a good start. Now, what can Monty do with the other 5 picks, as far as going to get other, marquee type players?
He's got some incredible insight. You got to check it out on his Twitter account, his top 5 players at each position, including slot receiver. Let me ask you this. We're all big fans of James Conner, but he's getting up there, 29 years old this season, in the final year of his contract. Which maybe day 2 or day 3 running backs do you think would be a great in-house successor that the Cardinals could add to their roster in this draft?
It's Marshawn Lloyd. Marshawn Lloyd at USC he doesn't have a lot of tread off the tire. He's got explosive, movement, 5'10", 220 pounds, and he's patient. Like, he looks like an NFL running back to me. Now, he's fumbled too many times. Like, that's out there. I think he's got, a bunch, more than anybody wants to have. And so he's going to have to work on that aspect of it. And perhaps pass protection is always an issue. But, nobody's a finished product. But just from a talent standpoint, he looks like he's going to be a good NFL player at that position.
Baldy, we'll get you out of here on this. Cardinals are set to, quote unquote, own the draft, right? Everybody's all over Austin for. They have the most draft capital. Which team do you believe is under the most pressure to perform come Thursday night?
Well, I played for the Dallas Cowboys, and Jerry's come out and said, we're all in, we're all in, we're all in. They just had a horrible home playoff loss to Green Bay. He said the roster's fine. I'd say they better, they typically have drafted at the top very, very well. They need to continue that streak. They got to fix the offensive line. They need a running back for sure. If they're going to go compete in the NFC East and in the NFC, I'd say they're under they're under the microscope because, look, they're still the most popular team in this league. They drive all the ratings. They always have, and they'll continue to do that. They're always going to be under pressure. But there's pressure on Dak, win playoff games. I think all around, that organization feels a lot of heat.
No doubt about it. He's our all-city NFL analyst. You're going to see him all week long, starting today. NFL Total Access. Don't miss that. Path to the Draft. Of course, NFL Network's premier draft coverage throughout the 3 days. We can't wait for it, Baldy. Thank you for getting us and our audience as prepared as possible.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. I'll talk to you next week. Let's recap and figure out where the Cardinals are and where they climbed in the power ratings after their latest draft.